Is China's economy finally moving along again? Industrial production rose last month by 6.2% over a year ago. Normally, that's nothing to get excited about. But given the economy's recent weak performance, it was something for Beijing to celebrate as proof that it's not suffering from its trade war with the U.S. The Chinese economy remains stable and shows progress. It illustrates that even in a complex and difficult international environment, China's economy still has strong potential and plenty of room for action. Markets in Shanghai reacted positively to the news, closing 0.5% higher at their highest mark in 6 weeks. There's a renewed belief that China's trade war with America has been put on ice. Both countries have just agreed to sit out the next round of tariff increases. The U.S. canceled a further $160 billion in customs duties in the so-called first phase of the agreement. Also, tariffs that have already been put into effect will be reduced. China, in turn, announced it would import $200 billion worth of U.S. goods, including agricultural products. And intellectual property will be better protected as well. Negotiations are set to begin again in January, but observers say it's too early to predict that an end to the trade war is in sight because most of the tariffs remain in force. It could still be a few weeks before forecasts are possible.
And for more, I'm joined by Laura von Daniels from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, where she heads the research division, the Americas. Good to have you with us. So first of all, no further tariffs, certainly this weekend. What's prompted this move?
Well, there's an electoral campaign in the US that's just starting. There's also the impeachment process. So the president is under pressure, the US president, to come up with results. And it's been actually a pretty lucky week for him because there was a preliminary deal with Democrats on the USMCA agreement with Canada and Mexico. And now a phase one deal with China.
Which has yet to be signed, of course.
Yeah.
So it's not written in stone just yet.
Not yet. And it's also not a big idea. I mean, it's a pretty narrow achievement. It's basically an agreement on agricultural exports of 40 billion that will go from the US to China now. But not much has been reached on intellectual property rights and all the other difficult problems that are still around between China and the US.
So what more needs to happen for those problems to be resolved and to reduce or even remove the existing tariffs?
But the US has said clearly that they will continue to evaluate the progress of this trade deal being implemented and then decide if there will be a further agreement, a phase two deal that would then include further reforms on the Chinese side, major structural economic reforms. But it's not clear that the Chinese will actually bend to those US requests. That's not obvious at all at this point.
So there's still a lot of work to be done. And this, of course, happens as the World Trade Organization happens to face its worst crisis ever. And that largely because of the United States sort of blocking it. What's the US after?
Well, the major conflict is about conflict resolution within the WTO. And it seems that the US government is aiming for a situation that looks much more like before the founding of the WTO in 1995. So what they are after is basically being able to place a veto against any kind of rulings that come out of the dispute settlement.
What does that mean then for global trade as we know it?
Well, it would mean that any kind of results that come out of these dispute settlement bodies are no longer binding, but any country can just place a veto and say, no, we won't implement, and then, that's the end of the story. So it would be a regress.
Is there any sign, or do you have any hopes that the WTO eventually can sort of recover from all this?
I think so. I think the European Union, together with other countries, can actually... They came up with solutions already within the WTO, an alternative dispute settlement mechanism that could be implemented between a large number of countries, including China, India, and other big players. So there are options still, but of course, it's difficult with one of the biggest economies just blocking everything, any kind of reform at this point.
Right. Laura von Daniels there from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.